Hello, this is the Queens Community Board 1 Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Committee, our meeting in February 10th. And both myself, Richard Kazami, and co-chair Rosemary Yelton thank everyone for joining us. Over the years, the Parks Committee has been really strongly focused on primarily parks and recreation items, but I think that it's high time that we work more on the cultural side. And I want to see going forward if we can have more input from the community as to what the cultural needs are and what can be done, because nothing defines a community more than its cultural environment. And while we have a good start here, it can always be improved. And in that, to that end, we invited over the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs to join us to start giving us a foundation so that everybody understands how it works, the type of programs, funds, and anything else that might be appropriate for us to know in order to grow the cultural health of Community Board 1. So to that end, we've invited DCLA to come down. Ryan Max will be joining us. 1 minute though before we start. At our last general meeting, there was a comment from somebody asking about the opening date for Rainey Park, which has been under construction for quite a while now. And I would like to ask Florence if she could come on. She actually spoke to the Parks Department and has more specifics as to what the current status is and what we can expect. So Florence, if you could go over that, that would be great.
Hi, Richard. Thank you. So I had a conversation with Parks Department representatives, and the seeding that they did in the park is not taking properly. So the grass and the turf are coming in spotty. We're going to have to resurface that area. In addition, the items for the park which were ordered have not been delivered, so they cannot install them. In order for Parks Department to be able to do their punch list and have the park open to the public, all of these things must be rectified. So Parks Department is now looking at a possibility of April 2025 for the park to reopen.
Okay, thank you for that information. We're all looking forward to it. It's been too long, so hopefully very soon. Good. Okay. So, Ryan, if you would like to join us, I'd love to invite you to come up and start to speak. And if you could introduce your team that you brought with you, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Sure. Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, I was going to be joined by my colleague, Ann Del Castillo. She has a family emergency she has to attend to. So you're stuck with me for the evening, but I do appreciate and I'm grateful for the invitation and look forward to learning more about the cultural needs of the great District 1 in the Borough of Queens. I do have a very quick PowerPoint just to give a high-level overview of the agency. Is it okay if I go ahead and share my screen?
Please do.
Are you seeing my
I see it.
PowerPoint, giant logo? Okay.
Yeah, you could probably go full screen with it. That might help.
It is all that I can see, so I don't know. Is it looking okay for other folks on the call? And I can't see anyone's cameras anymore, so I'm gonna need a verbal.
It looks okay. Yeah, it's not full screen though.
Huh? Can you see other?
Yeah, you got the left side lists or the left side thumbnails. They're showing.
How's that? Is that better?
No, you need to press the bottom down. You see the 100%. Beside this has a minus. Then you have something small. This is the one you need to use it. After that will be a full screen. This is for the view screen. Go down, right?
At the bottom right, yeah.
Yes, in the bottom right beside the 100%, you'll see plus and minus. Beside the
Mhm.
minus, you will see something. That's the one you need to use it.
That one?
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm? Yeah.
It's
You didn't,
also,
it didn't change. It didn't change. You're supposed, like when you press it, it's changed, but it didn't change.
if you can see,
It's okay. I think it
if
works.
you can see it well enough, yeah, it's also not,
Mhm.
you know, most of the substance will come from the data that I have separately. So I'm just gonna get started if that's cool with you guys. And I will practice this before the next time we meet, I promise. So we are the Department of Cultural Affairs. And I'm going to start very, very high level, very basic, just not assuming any kind of base level of knowledge about the agency. So if this is all old news to you, just feel free to stop me and I can zip on through. But we are a mayoral agency. Primary function is to fund arts and culture across the city of New York. We support just over 1,000 cultural nonprofits in all 5 boroughs each year through a number of funding programs that I will get into greater detail in a moment. We are a mayoral agency, as I mentioned. Our commissioner is Lori Cumbo, formerly a city council member from Brooklyn, appointed in March of 2022 by Mayor Adams. So has been with us for just about 3 years at this point. So I'm going to run through the specific programs and ways that we actually intersect with and support the city's cultural community. In a moment, the Cultural Development Fund is the primary vehicle for us getting public tax dollars into the hands of cultural nonprofits for their public programming across the 5 boroughs. This is managed through a competitive grant peer panel review process each year. We actually just got the notifications for the FY25 cycle out in the last week or 2 here. So hopefully a lot of happy organizations in your district. There are just over 21 actually in FY25 in Queens CB1 there are 21, just over 20, that received just over $775,000 in total city funding. Again, that's for publicly accessible cultural programming. Not going to read through them all, but a handful of the groups that got funded are Chinese Theater Works, Flux Factory, Noguchi Museum. I saw Amy on earlier. Make Music New York, Socrates Sculpture Park, and a number of others. So happy to share that list afterwards if you're interested. Also, we will open up the FY26 round of applications in the weeks in the next month or two. So if you're not already sort of in our system and receiving updates and messages that let you know when that application is open, I recommend you go to our homepage, nyc.gov/culture, which will be on the last slide in a minute or two here, and sign up for our e-newsletter, which if you're brand new to the system, that's the best way to and simplest way to be notified about the CDF application period when it opens. If you've already applied or received money before, you most likely already received the notifications directly, either from your program officer or a general emails that the unit sends out when that's happening. If you receive a Cultural Development Fund award from the agency, or if you're a member of the Cultural Institutions Group, which are 34 institutions on city-owned property around the city, that means you're eligible for capital funding from the Department of Cultural Affairs, which is the next bucket of support I'm going to talk about here. This is, to our knowledge, fairly unique way, unique to New York City, way that the city supports its cultural sector. This sort of funding specifically goes to construction projects, renovation projects, equipment projects, and other hard costs at cultural institutions around the city. There are about 250 active or 400 active projects at about 250 organizations at any one time around the city. And in CB1, that include a few organizations that have gotten capital funding recently include, again, Noguchi Museum, where we are helping to fund the restoration and renovation of Osamu Noguchi studio space. Flux Factory has received a significant amount of money for their space as well. And I'm happy to send a list if that's interesting to you all after this presentation. Moving on quickly, I referenced briefly Cultural Institutions Group. Those are 34 institutions on city property that receive operating and energy support from the Department of Cultural Affairs in exchange for administering the city-owned property that they occupy and providing culturally accessible programming for all New Yorkers. There are no CIGs directly in CB1, but MoMA PS1 is right on the border. That's a member of the CIG. And then across Queens, we have Queens Museum, Queens Theater, New York Hall of Science, Queens Botanical Garden, Jamaica Center for Arts and Learning, and Flushing Town Hall are all members of the CIG. Public art, so the three programs that I just discussed are the funding programs, so you can apply for support if you're an eligible 501c3 nonprofit through the Cultural Development Fund. You can apply for capital funding once you meet eligibility criteria that are spelled out on our website, but very basically include being funded by the CDF as a prerequisite or being a member of the CIG. And now the next two things I'm going to talk about are programs the agency runs, which may very well serve and benefit your organization, but don't strictly fall under the funding category of the programming we have. So to start with, we have a public art unit run by Assistant Commissioner Kendall Henry and David Mandel, who I believe both of them make regular appearances on the community board circuit, so you may have heard from them in the past. But public art, one of the main programs that they operate is Percent for Art, which sets aside a program that sets aside a percentage of the capital budget for eligible city capital projects. So think schools, libraries, DOT, redesigns of streets and courthouses and things like that. So this program is often sort of conflated by the public with MTA Arts for Transit, which, as you probably know, MTA is a creature of the state. This program specifically commissions permanent site-specific artwork for city-funded capital projects. So that is the distinction. There are a number of the projects located in CB1 that have been commissioned through Percent for Art include.
Ryan, could I just interject? Is it possible for you to change pages on the presentation? You're still on the opening page.
Oh, I've moved on a couple of times throughout, so this is just not working at all. Is it different now?
Yeah, it is. You're on the third page now, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been sorry about that. Running through these. And now I'm on public art, fourth one right here. So anyway, the Percent for Art program has commissioned a number of projects in your district that include projects at the Long Island City Library, a number of schools at Long Island City High School, a number of projects at Long Island City High School, a project at Frank Sinatra High School, Academy of American Studies, and the 44th Police Precinct, which is located, that's actually a project at Socrates Sculpture Park, originally commissioned for the Bronx in the late 80s, early 90s. That was the subject of a very, very fascinating and complicated controversy around the commissioning of that artwork. There's a long New Yorker article and a whole book, I believe, written about it. If you're interested in learning more, but those pieces by John Ahern and Rigoberto Torres now currently reside at Socrates Sculpture Park as a result of that whole dust up. Last and very far from least is Materials for the Arts, our creative reuse program that we operate, which is actually located in Community Board 1's district. For those who do not know, Materials for the Arts collects donated items from a range of donors, from city agencies to film and TV and theater productions, and makes them available free of charge to their 5,000 plus member organizations. These organizations include arts nonprofits, city agencies with arts programming, public schools, and similar organizations that run publicly accessible cultural programming that is, made possible, made affordable thanks to the incredible array of free supplies that the groups are able to access through Materials for the Arts. A couple of the members in your district include Dance Matters and Emit Theater. There are 45 MFTA members located in CD1, including 14 DOE public schools. So if you're not already familiar with MFTA, I encourage you to visit nyc.gov/MFTA and learn more about it. Very incredible program with lots of ways that schools, nonprofits, other organizations like that can benefit and get access to free supplies. Actually, just to rewind to public art for 1 second, we also, Percent for Art is the primary program that our public art unit operates. There's also something called City Canvas, which is a relatively new initiative that, instead of the ubiquitous forest green that you see on sidewalk sheds and construction, we would colloquially know them as scaffolding, but the Department of Buildings would be very upset with us if we said that. They're technically known as sidewalk sheds and construction fences, and construction fencing, which is the ubiquitous green, either netting or plywood surfaces that surround buildings when they have ongoing construction projects or need facade repairs or things like that. So up until City Canvas came along, those structures had to be forest green by law. City Canvas allows for the installation of public artwork, visual art on those surfaces, and a few dozen of these have been installed throughout the city, many of them at NYCHA developments, including one called A City in Motion, which was a 600-foot long installation by native Queens artist Zihan Wazed. And that was installed at NYCHA's Astoria houses, which, as you know, are located in CD1. It was created in cooperation with youth at the Hanek Cornerstone Community Center, located in the Astoria houses. So, very cool program. City Canvas, happy to send more info on it after today's presentation if you'd like to know more. One element of our funding programs that I wanted to call attention to is that through our Cultural Development Fund, we provide a pot of money to arts councils in each of the 5 boroughs, which in turn distribute this funding to individual artists and smaller nonprofits and collectives that might not be yet eligible for direct funding from DCLA, but they're eligible for these smaller grants that can still support a wide range of funding. They're often a good sort of way to ramp up to receiving larger grants directly from DCLA is starting with these. If you're a nonprofit, if you're an individual artist, we're not able to give funding directly to individual artists for legal reasons that remain vague to me, but we're very proud of our partnership with the local arts councils to distribute funding to those artists working in each of the 5 boroughs as a way of continuing to invest in them, even though we can't give out direct grants. In Queens, the New York Foundation for the Arts currently operates the Queens Arts Fund. So again, our newsletter is a great place to learn about when that opportunity comes around, but NYFA, you can also connect with them directly and learn more on their website about when the next cycle is coming up and how you can apply and eligibility criteria and all that good stuff for the Queen's Arts Fund. Here is where I would have passed it to my colleague Ann Del Castillo, who I said was unable to join us, unfortunately. But this is, I think, a very cool new program that DCLA just got off the ground about 2-3 months ago. I think it was early December. And we worked with the mayor's office to announce Create in Place. Again, the amateur version, since Anne is really the one who's created this program from the ground up and has built it into a very exciting new initiative. But basically, it's a program that's focused on cultural space, the brick and mortar kind of locations, either that are longtime community hubs that are under threat for various reasons, places that are looking to expand or relocate, kind of before, maybe a rent hike that they know is coming down the pike in a few years, that may end up, risking their ability to stay in a place that they've put down roots and become a part of the community. This is a program that's really set up to make sure to kind of walk these organizations through all the resources that are available to them. There's a really impressive website with a whole list of incredibly curated resources that Anne has pulled together. And groups can also fill out a form on that website to get kind of more one-on-one coaching through any challenges they may be facing. And it's kind of a one-stop shop for the many programs across city government that might be able to help these groups and they just aren't aware of. So again, this would have been a much more robust part of the presentation, but happy to send the link to that program through. And if you have any questions, I can either connect you with Anne when she's back in the office or do my best to track down answers for you. But that's it. And since it wasn't really working to begin with, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have or anything else.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great presentation. Appreciate you taking the time to come down. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to start with. First of all, I guess from a topical standpoint of what's going on now, how much of your funding is federally based and how much is it state and city based, primarily because of the issues now with disappearing federal funding?
It's a good question. DCLA's budget is, and the numbers that I have been citing in the grant programs I've been talking about are entirely city funded. So if organizations across the city do get federal funding, they tend to get it, either they've applied directly to the NEA for a grant, or there are a handful of institutions that are part of the Smithsonian network, like Cooper Hewitt in the National Museum of the American Indian in Lower Manhattan. I don't believe there's something, the Smithsonian Institution affiliate program. I don't have a full list of who's a part of that, but I'm not sure if any of those would be in Queens or Astoria. But yeah, I mean, for better or worse, the federal government in the U.S., I mean, generally for worse, there's not a very robust or large amount of funding there available to begin with. So for DCLA's budget, that means that we've always been close to or at 100% city funds in the funding that we're pushing out to the cultural community, and therefore wouldn't have any of the more immediate effects of the policy changes that have been announced in Washington.
Good, that's good. Over the years that I've been with the community board, I'm lucky enough to both served on a panel for Percent for Art and also I was a panelist for funding at the Queens Council on the Arts when it existed. Can you tell me on the Percent for Art at this point, how does the system work nowadays? Who votes on the particular art projects, the panels? Because there were some issues back in the day when I was involved in it. I'm not sure how it's being handled nowadays.
Do you happen to remember which project you were on a panel for?
It was
it
actually one that actually, I don't think it ever materialized. It was for Rikers Island, which is part of
okay.
it. Mhm.
I'd have to look into that.
We did actually vote on something, but I don't think it was ever constructed.
Got it.
Mhm.
There is, I know that the large pink sculpture, the sunbather that's in, I think that might be technically south and maybe it's in CB2, but
Mhm.
that was the subject of a lot of attention and some local controversy some number of years ago, I know. So thought it might be that one. So the percent for art, the panel process is spelled out in by law. I think it was held in sort of agency policy and practice for a number of years. And then in the last 5-10 years, I believe then Councilmember Van Bramer introduced legislation that sort of codified exactly the makeup of the panels and how they should operate. So I can get back to you with the exact makeup of a panel, but I know it's the commissioning agency. So that would be, say it's a library, that'd be the library system. DCLA's Percent for Art team always has a member of the panel. 3 local, I'm going to mess up the language here, so I should just get it to you via email, but it's local experts with significant or substantial knowledge of the arts. But I can certainly follow up with that information. But it's a panel process that's spelled out in the city charter.
Okay, is there any other studies that you do or that you're involved with, maybe in conjunction with like the New York City EDC or whatever, on the economic results of cultural institutions and how they help the general economy and general quality of life within the city? Are there any studies like that that have been done or that are ongoing?
Not that the Department of Cultural Affairs has directly commissioned. The one that we rely on frequently, that obviously we would like to get updated at some point, is the 2019 Comptroller report, which gives a great snapshot of the economic impact of the cultural community just before the pandemic hit. Obviously, post-pandemic, there's been huge disruption in the way that a lot of cultural groups do business. So it's been, see 2019 is a great baseline for, just like with the tourism numbers, I think we're on track to meet or exceed the 2019 records that were set in the next, maybe if not this year, then next year. But similarly, I think we did commission surveys of DCLA grantees about the impacts of the pandemic, but those were more kind of focused on assessing the damage in order to advocate for federal funding and to inform how DCLA's own grants and funding went out the door. But as far as just like a big picture, here's the cultural value of the arts to the city of New York. There are reports here and there, but none to my knowledge that sort of are as comprehensive or all encompassing as that 2019 city comptroller report. So I'm happy to follow up with a link to send that to you as well.
And one last question for me. What does the DCLA look for from community boards? How can we help you out in your pursuit of cultural growth in the city?
Well, the Create in Place program that I mentioned at the tail end of the presentation there, that's really one where we hear about the same long-term beloved cultural assets that suddenly have launched a Kickstarter and get get a placement on local TV and there's not point support. We certainly will continue to monitor local outlets and tap into the networks we already have to kind of keep track of that information. But the thing about rescuing these, and rescuing is not the best word, but supporting these organizations before they even get to the point of needing to have a Kickstarter to have an emergency fundraiser to make up for rent before eviction notice comes down or something like that, is to really get them on our radar and start talking to them before they get to those points of acute crisis. And there's nobody like community boards that have their eyes and ears on the ground in the neighborhoods that you represent. So that would be one. We presented to Manhattan CB4, which is the west, kind of mid to lower west side of Manhattan, a few weeks ago, and they brought up a whole building full of artist studios that's kind of at risk of displacement. That a week or two later we saw reported in a couple of headlines. But talking to that community board to get on our radar before it had hit the headlines was very helpful, kind of to speak to the folks involved and get a sense of the issues they were facing as early as possible, because it's one of those issues where the earlier you can intervene and start to diagnose the issues and the possible solutions, the better. So again, I'll send a follow-up email to kind of give you a little email-based tour of that website for Create in Place, and hopefully you guys can help spread the word among your networks for that. And you asking that question jogged my memory that the Percent for Art panels, of course, do involve community board representation and community board presentations. So when those come up, again, nobody like a community board that has that kind of local roots and knowledge to bring to the table in those public art commissioning processes. So we really rely on and respect and appreciate that knowledge that you guys have. And then, sorry, final one. If you sign up for our newsletter, we do announce, like I said, when the annual CDF, Cultural Development Fund process opens up, and would love your assistance in making sure that gets out to all groups who might be eligible and may not be aware of that opportunity for city funding for cultural programming.
Would that include public art? We do have a public art curated program here that, well, frankly, their issue is they're running out of space because as more construction development happens, a lot of their building fronts are starting to disappear. So I don't know if you ever do they work within something like that?
We fund plenty of groups who specifically focus on temporary public artwork. I'm not sure if that's what you're describing there. Okay.
It's seasonal. They change it every season, but yes, it is, and it is curated, but it's on the streets. They go and get different building owners to approve, putting something on their facade or whatever. They bring in different artists.
Cool.
But they're getting less and less space as more new construction happens. So,
got it. Yeah, I can think of a public art fund creative time. A temporary public art presenter did a major installation in Long Island City last year. So we support a number of groups that focus on temporary public art.
Okay, good. Now I'd like to open it up. Anybody else have any questions? You can put your hands up if you do. Yep, Amy, yes, good.
Hi, Richard, thanks for inviting Ryan. Ryan, nice to see you.
Hi, Amy.
I have been referring some friends to Create in Place, the website. I haven't actually gone through it. Can you just talk us through a little bit of what it does? Is there a help desk where people can come and sort of describe their situations to get resources on either finding a new place or helping with, leasing matters or whatever?
Sorry.
I mean, it's not like a program where they put in for something and then, this, I just don't, I like to know a little bit more about how the service works.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop. Well, you said you've already seen the website, but for anyone who might not have, I just dropped a link to the Create in Place website in the chat here. But I think two main things on the website that, if I can do my best, and impression. The resource page
Mhm.
is really, she put a lot of elbow grease into curating something that would really, again, it was kind of laser focused on space issues. So if you zoom out too much, to kind of any challenge that the cultural community is facing, you get to kind of just describe what the Department of Cultural Affairs kind of remit is writ large in supporting the cultural life of New York City. So to really drill down on the issue that most organizations in our experience in New York, with the cost of living crisis and affordability crisis and real estate issues that are at the root of so many of the challenges that are anyone faces, but in the cultural community in particular. Space is really sort of the lens that all of these resources are collected for and curated to address. And so that would be the resources, the second tab on the website, if anybody's clicked on the link. And then the sort of, if you've consulted the resources page and still aren't really sure if there are programs that across the city that would address your specific issues. If you go to the About tab, in the bottom is the Contact Us option.
Mhm.
There is the Register for One-on-One Support
Mhm.
link. Will take you to a form that kind of collects, we tried to keep it as low of a burden as possible, but while still collecting enough information to be able to understand the issue at a high level and kind of think through who from the city or our network of sort of growing network of private partners in philanthropy and the nonprofit sector and places like that might be able to help. So those are kind of the 1-2, I think, we're encouraging everyone to start with the resource page, fill out the form if they're still kind of unsure of what resources might be available to them. And then we did launch a series of legal webinars that concluded, I believe it was a week or 2 ago, and those recordings are not yet posted. We just had the last webinar last week, but those will be available on that website as well. Those are sort of designed to help groups address, they were done with the Lawyers Alliance and a couple of other legal pro bono assistance groups like that, to help groups navigate how to register as a 501c3 nonprofit, how to navigate fiscal sponsorship as an option that might be good for folks. So as soon as those webinars are made available on our YouTube page, we'll post them on this website as well and send them out via a newsletter, just to plug that resource again.
I have a part 2, but I'll let Jen speak first.
Hi. Thank you for being here. This is my first community board meeting, so I jumped on because Ryan, you were on. I sort of represent a few different organizations and myself as well, but I am with the Historic Park Alliance and also Queens Rising. And one thing that Queens Rising has noted within the cultural world is that a lot of our artists don't have access to space. And so your website that you just plugged in, the New York City Create in Place, has a space registration form, I'm noticing. And I'm interested to find out more about who's submitting to that and if artists are able to access that list and how they could connect with places that have space to host art, to host performance, or to host rehearsals. It's actually a big request among a lot of our visual artists, performing artists. They're looking to present and have exhibits and be supported by the community. I guess I'll start there because I might have too much to ask. But that's my first question: is that how can we have access? How can we gain access to the list of places that have space?
That is a great question that I will need to get back to you on the answer to. So we just launched this initiative Create in Place, like I said, maybe 2 months ago. That element to it was something that sort of in our off the record, or kind of planning conversations in the lead up to the launch, kind of talking to folks about what they would be interested in seeing in something like this initiative once it was launched. And there were a number of folks who were like, we actually have space and have a hard time of knowing how to navigate the process of making it available to artists and nonprofits and other members of the creative community. So it sounds like it was created in exactly the spirit of what you're saying would be helpful to your networks. And again, my colleague Anne, who was supposed to join us and wasn't able to, she's the one who directly receives the submissions when they come in. So I'll have to check with her and circle back to see what,
Would
if
you be
anything.
Would you be willing to put her email in the chat and I can connect with her direct?
Yeah, she is out of the office on a family emergency, so I can drop her email in there. I think that a better way, yeah. So there's the NYC Create in Place at culture.nyc.gov. It's the email address that's on the contact us page. I think that's probably a better option at the moment. And I can make sure to flag for her when she's back in the office that there is great interest in learning more and that she'll follow up when she can.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, any links that you have, if you could email them to the community board office, then community board office will distribute them to all the members of the committee so that we can have them in one place. Okay, Ryan?
Will do. That's the address I see from Florence here in the chat?
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. And Amy's second question.
Thanks, Richard. So I think, my interest, Ryan, is also, kind of helping people with resources. And I know that the city has a lot of different sites that they manage. And, I wonder if there's like a lot of interagency work you do with, let's say, EDC, because they have sites, right, all over the place. And, is there a way to like have these interagencies kind of come together and provide a list of places where people can go to for rehearsal, for performings spaces? I think that would be really helpful to have sort of a larger thinking. And I know, also with a lot of developments that come up, so often there are spaces that, developers may not know how to figure out what to do with. And, like all of us here would love to have a space for, I see a lot of retail spaces that were empty during the pandemic. Like, can't we reuse some of those spaces for workshops or whatever, and kind of help manage a way of like addressing the leasing of those places would be really great. So I just want to put that out there for Anne to consider. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, one of the key partners on that initiative has been SBS, the Small Business Services Department. They have a whole vacant storefront program that looks to activate spaces like that. It was with SBS and DCAS. So if you know Department of Citywide Administrative Services, they oversee a huge portfolio of city-owned space around all 5 boroughs. So we've been in close contact with them to identify possibility and within that city-owned space portfolio that could be activated for cultural use. There's in fact I'm pointing over my shoulder when I realize all you can see is a blue nothing. So down here at 31 Chambers, where DCLA's offices are, 2 Lafayette, which is right off the southwest corner of Foley Square, if anyone knows the area. Large city-owned building that had MCU, the Municipal Credit Union, used to be on the ground floor right there, if you're familiar with that location. They moved recently, leaving a large amount of space available there and other parts throughout the building. And we actually worked with an organization called Art on the Avenue to turn some of that vacant space into affordable artist studios. And then the Clemente, if you're familiar with the Clemente Stodovella's Cultural Center on the Lower East Side, their big, beautiful, historic school building that is their headquarters is undergoing a major renovation that's going to last for some months more. And that building is home to a lot of tenant artists and arts nonprofits that can't access that space while the renovation is ongoing. So we've temporarily found a lot of them space in the 2 Lafayette building down here. So it's a great sort of potential and fertile ground for more collaborations across agencies. And we'll definitely keep those conversations going and hope that they lead to more, but I'll certainly pass the message along to Anne as well.
Can I make one comment? It might be interesting if you guys acted as like a clearinghouse in the sense, not just for public agencies like city agencies, but also private ones. That also, I know that there's Chashama, which is an organization which finds space for visual arts primarily.
Yeah.
That's run through a private developer. So I think that maybe it would be great if there was one spot where everybody could go to where both the public and private assets could be possibly, you could get at them. It would simplify things a lot.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Don't one thing I forgot to mention, and Anne would have kicked me under the table for this, is that Create NYC is currently an unfunded city initiative. So we fund it through our in-kind staff resources, and kind of have an interagency working group of folks that come together on a regular basis to talk through issues on this. But something like what you're describing sounds awesome, and we'd love to, I think, explore ways we could do that. But it also, I think, would require some amount of resources to be put into it to make it something that was actually regularly updated and useful for users. I'm sure some folks on the call who have been around the cultural sector for a while might remember like Spacework, or not Spaceworks. That is something you might also remember, but Space Finder, maybe. There was a website entirely dedicated to affordable workspace for artists, and it was great while it lasted, but I think it ran into a lot of logistical challenges and in a lot of ways left a gap in the city's cultural sector that we're still looking for ways to fill. But point well taken, Richard. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, any representatives of any elected officials that are here, do you have any questions for Department of Cultural Affairs specifically? Okay. Well, listen, I thank you very much. It's great. And it might be nice if you let us know at some point when your associate may become available, since it seems there's a lot of questions regarding this new program that she's doing. And I'd love to invite her back at some point, so we can go over this, because it sounds like a great idea and a great program. We'd like to support it, I'm sure. So.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you. And I see, Jen, you posted about Indie Space in the chat there. Randy and Indie Space are good friends of Creating Place as well. So that's exactly the kind of group we're looking to partner for that initiative.
Good. Okay, well, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you joining us this evening. Go get dinner. And
thank you.
Okay, and we do have another question actually, which I think Florence may be able to answer. Benjamin Lotto, I guess with our assembly persons, Mamdani, had a question regarding Rainy Park. He asked if that be, if he has a chance to ask. So Benjamin, if you'd like to do that.
Uh, it- Thank you so much, Richard, and lovely to see you all virtually. Florence, I know you messaged me, and I'm just seeing that now regarding calling, but I'll just flag for everyone. The last general community board meeting, it was mentioned that Rainy Park was open, and as you highlight, it's actually not. A lot of our constituents are calling and emailing us, and we're seeing on various platforms, be it social media or elsewhere, that people, as Richard highlighted, want their park open. And I was just wondering, on behalf of the assembly member, if there was anything the board could do to try and nudge that process along, because it has been delayed over 6 months now. It was supposed to originally open right last summer, and the same line of logic has been used for each delay, more or less. And so a lot of constituents are calling and asking, is this actually an issue, or is the same thing going to, be asked and we're still not going to see the park? What should we do for green space, et cetera? So just wanted to flag and see if there's anything the board could do.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth. Until the material comes in, nothing can be done. We had a similar experience when they were replacing the seawall around Astoria houses. The fencing actually came from China and was shipped from overseas to the United States. And due to the shipping delays during COVID, the project was delayed. Unfortunately, the grass did not germinate. And in order to open up the project, they have to have all of the punch lists completed. They cannot return the park back until the punch list is completed. The contractors are responsible for everything that they're being paid for, and so it must be completed. At this point, they're not capable of completing. That's why they've extended it to April. And if the weather is bad, there could be more extensions. Like if we had a lot more snow for the rest of the next couple of months, because it does snow into April, that could delay it further. I mean, this time of the year is very difficult to get complete work done. It's a normal part of the process.
So it sounds like it's more of a landscaping issue than it is actually a supply chain issue at this
No,
point.
there's a supply chain issue also.
Oh,
That's one, there are two aspects.
Mhm.
So as I had stated at the beginning of the conversation, one was the supply chain and the second was the germination. Because, well, you're beautifying the park, you're creating the green space, but now the green is not returning, so they're obligated to return the green.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, everyone. Well, listen, everyone, I hope this is the beginning of actually more efforts towards the cultural health of our community. I'd like to see more growth in that area. We have a really strong basis led by people like Amy and actually Jan also from the Story Park Alliance and everything. You guys have been doing a lot of work on this subject, so that I hope that we can in fact continue to grow over the years. I really think that we should be able to become a real destination point for the whole city and for the whole tri-state. So I look forward to that happening. So, and with that, if there's no more questions, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and see everybody soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Richard. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye.